It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy The Grind.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into a special episode of The Grind Line here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, as always, joined in by my line mates, Sabourin, Devin Little. Guys, the roller coaster is over. Unfortunately, it's over. When it seemed like it could have continued into the playoffs, they won their last two games in very dramatic fashion, except the mercy of scoreboards and mercy of other teams. And unfortunately, that's what they were tonight when Capitals won on an empty net goal. We'll talk about this against the Flyers, and they effectively eliminated the Red Wings because they won. So the Capitals are in the playoffs, eliminating a whole bunch of teams. So we're going to just talk about these last two games, which were amazing games. And they did win both against the Canadiens. So I'll start with you, Evan. Feelings, thoughts, what's kind of running through your head now, these last two games and the almost by razor thin margins missing the playoffs?
It's almost hard to be mad at this point. I mean, last night, man, I'm still trying to process last night, and then to see what happened tonight, it's just a whole nother ball game. The feelings are kind of like spread out right now, and I'm probably in a couple hours I'll start swearing and yelling and pointing the finger at somebody. Last night was great, man. I will remember that game for a very long time. Yeah. That's one of those games that's going to stick with you for a while, and you'll remember where you were. It's that game kind of reminds me, like, I remember the game where Sergei Fedorov scored 5 goals on the Christmas break against Washington. And that's probably the last game that I can think of outside of any playoffs or Stanley Cup games that really stood out to me. And man, last night that's just, I know I slacked you guys or sent you guys a text message saying, I'm out in LA, and I think the neighbors thought someone was getting murdered because even my wife thought something was wrong because I was at the top of my lungs, just not even just from the Brinkhead goal to the Raymond goal that tied it to that overtime with the unbelievable Ken Daniels call. And it was just something special. And then, like I said, I'm still not done processing that game. And then to see what happened tonight, I mean, it was amazing. I'm still just, last night, I'm sure we all had that feeling, and I saw everyone on Red Wings Twitter was that shaking feeling that felt like a playoff game. It was crazy. It was fun. The LCA was rocking. It was amazing. But, to come up short, and they did everything they had to do. The Flyers, thanks a lot, Tortorella. Best. Love you. But, I'm a little upset about, in the first period there, looks like the Flyers had scored, but Kelly Sutherland blew the whistle too soon while the puck was still up in the air, and it bounced down and into the Washington net. Finally beat Charlie Lindgren, but it was no good because he already blew the whistle. So it just feels like a fitting end after, the way this season has gone. I can't remember a season with more storylines than this one had. The ups and downs, and it was great doing this every week with you guys. So I'm a little disappointed it's over, but what a hell of a ride it was.
Yeah, Devin, what about you? I mean, it was very iconic. I was saying before we started recording, I usually cover the Canucks. I've covered the Red Wings now too, but I was watching that game yesterday like I've been a diehard fan my whole life of the Red Wings. And I think I am now, I've been a fan of the Red Wings. I think I'm more of a fan of the Red Wings now. That game was just insane, amazing. Lucas Raymond, we've talked about him all year. He's a star, and he's now got 30 goals, 31 actually. And he's just the start of that. I think he's going to be scoring those goals in the playoffs in no time. So Devin, I mean, what are you thinking right now?
He's thinking this.
Yeah. Yes, that is what Lucas Raymond's thinking. That's for darn sure. Uh, yeah, roller coaster, right? And like we said before we started recording, they had to give us one more loop de loop just
Yeah.
before we thought we were getting off the ride. It launched one more time into a full 180. So
Yeah.
shout out to the Red Wings for keeping us on our toes until the very last second of the very last game. Holy cow. Um, it's almost it's bittersweet, right? Like this, you couldn't have asked for a better finish, so to
Mhm.
speak. 91 points, first time getting 40 wins and 90 points since the 2015-16 season. That was the last time they made the playoffs and still is. Um, but now that we're kind of through it, we can kind of look back in hindsight and say, their season was basically over on April 9th when they lost to the Capitals.
Mhm.
They win that game, they're in the playoffs, and we're having a different show right now. We're talking about how they're going to face the Rangers. We're talking about how the streak's over and how the best years are still ahead, and the best years still are ahead. But they win that game. Yeah, like I said, different show.
Mhm.
And I think what that tells me is that as good as this season was, and as fun as it was, and as you know, as many things there are to get excited about, still a lot of work to do.
Mhm.
They still didn't come up big when they needed to. Obviously, to win their last three games was huge, and it showed a lot of heart, especially the way that they won these games, scoring a tying goal with 3 seconds left. I mean, this is why this isn't just why you watch hockey. This is why you watch sports, right? Like you you have people across the continent getting invested in teams that like they don't usually follow until this. I'm talking about you, Matt. Like it's sports has that magic about it. This is it's like I said, it's bittersweet because you kind of wish that how this played out led to a playoff spot, but it's like, yeah, these last two games were magical, but they still didn't make the playoffs because they didn't get the job done on the ninth.
Mhm.
And I guess my last thought here is, what did we say before the season started? We predicted how the Red Wings were going to finish. Matt, what did we say? We'd say they just missed, right?
Well, they
I Boy, did they just miss. I didn't realize how when I said just miss, I wasn't thinking like this. Holy cow. Um
Can you just say
yeah.
they make the playoffs next year then? Because you obviously are Nostradamus.
Hey, listen, they're on that right trajectory, right?
What?
Next step's the playoffs.
Let's say the razorest of the thinnest of margins. This is the thinnest you can get. Tied with the Capitals with 91 points. The only reason they are not in the playoffs is because they did not win as many regulation games. They would have had more wins in regulation. They would have made the playoffs because that's the tiebreak. They had technically one more win than the Capitals. Then it looks weird to me that they're not in the playoffs when they have one more win.
Yeah.
And
But
a minus 37 goal differential.
yeah,
Yeah. On
Capitals should
on
not be in
paper
the playoffs.
on paper, the wrong team's in the playoffs right now, for sure.
Yeah, and they're gonna get blown out by the Rangers. Just saying,
The Wings would too,
right
but
now. But it's just I don't know. It just looks off. I mean, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. But the regulation wins is the first tiebreaker. So unfortunately, Red Wings didn't win as many. So that's the problem.
I'm
Unfortunately.
all for a one game playoff, man. That would have been great.
heck
Hmm.
yeah.
Let's do it. Friday night.
Should do that. Tie. If you're
Thursday
tied in the
night.
standings, you should play one game and win. And who wins that gets in.
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
That should be the tiebreak.
Please listen to us, Board of Governors and all owners.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough sitting here and saying, but what a great last two games. You can't say that they didn't try, that they didn't do their best to make it here, and they almost did. If Philly didn't pull their goalie there, but whatever. I mean,
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, Philadelphia had to get a win in regulation to even have a shot, and with the Red Wings forcing overtime, they were out.
yeah.
And it looks like they didn't know, or Tortorella didn't care. I'm gonna go with the latter, and
Yeah.
decided to pull the goalie. And yeah, that's what ended it. Really hoping for the Flyers, but as usual, they just let us down. Uh, I know I briefly mentioned it in our open, but that goal that Kelly Sutherland blew the whistle on too soon. I mean, that puck was 5 feet up in the air, and he blew the whistle, lost track of it, thinking Lindgren had it, That puck came down, bounced right in the net, and yeah, that could have been a difference maker. Now you can't say that. The game could have turned in different ways just out of that, but
Yeah.
it's gonna be in the back of my head for a while. But again, just to see the effort these last two nights and the way they had played these last three games, it left a good feeling. I mean, the best thing I can think of is Patrick Kane seeing what this team did the last three games and just the emotion and the
Yeah.
atmosphere at LCA last night. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, who writes that script? The Red Wings are down a big and someone throws an octopus on the ice. And that was a big one too. That was bigger than the one I threw. Uh, and then for them to come back in that magical fashion, it's hard to be upset right now that they missed. But yeah, I would have loved to see some more games, and I'm a little sad that now it's time to start looking at the draft. But what a season, man. Just every storyline imaginable was there.
Yeah.
So
Well, it should be a fun grindies.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's coming up. A little sooner than we hope, but it's gonna come. It was a couple fun games, and next season, I mean, this team's on the up and up, I think, and that's when you're looking at guys. I think Patrick Kane does come back. Like you said about he saw the atmosphere and they were just so close. I think he does, and we'll see. But I think he sees. I think he'll see potential in this team to return.
Once the trade deadline hits, I hope Yzerman's at Markstrom's door. If you look at this team this whole season, what a legit goalie could have done for this team. It's talking about a different ball game. Our goalies really struggled this last month, and it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, even the two games here, they allowed 4 goals in each game. So the Red Wings had to score their way out of trouble, which they've done a lot of the season. It's
right,
just, and they did. They won both games. They won both games and scoring 9 goals because the fifth would have been the shootout. But fun couple games, and we'll look forward to next season. But we'll have another episode. We're gonna keep going. This isn't the last episode of the season. We'll keep going throughout the off season. We always do. And but thanks, Devin, for going through this roller coaster throughout the season. And we'll wind down and just kind of sit on a carousel ride or something on the off season here.
No more roller coasters.
A lazy river.
Yeah. That's a good one. Lazy river. And if you did see a silver lining in tonight, that the Red Wings did score enough goals for curly fries, so there's still that.
All right. Well, make sure keeping it. I mean, we're going to keep having articles of the Hockey Writers, so keep an eye on that. We'll have a whole bunch of off-season stuff and the draft and a bunch of stuff coming up. We're hoping we're going to cover playoffs, but unfortunately, that's not the case. But exciting couple games. We'll keep going. So
thanks, sports.
Yeah. But make sure you're checking out everything. And but until our next episode, we'll see you on another episode of The Grind Line.